Are you ready to untangle from your past, recover from heartbreak, and revive your life? This is Soul CPR with your host, Ann Papayoti. We've all had soul-crushing experiences and lost ourselves in our pain, but there is a way out. On this podcast, Amazon best-selling author, award-winning life coach, and advice columnist Ann Papayoti helps us navigate the path from heartbreak to healing. So now, please welcome the host of Soul CPR, Ann Papayoti.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's really great to be back with you live this week. If you are watching in real time, then it is the first week of fall, and fall means change, right? And of course, that means welcomed change, at least in the weather here in North Texas anyway. But change is a funny thing, isn't it? Especially when it comes to human behavior. And when I think about that, I think that some people resist it, some people go with the flow, and some people perhaps change for the purpose of fitting in. But the question becomes, how far will some people go for that purpose? So today's topic is something that often comes to mind for me in the work that I do, and perhaps it crosses your mind from time to time as well. And having recently aired a show on self-love, I thought this was a great time to come and talk about this topic. And let me begin by asking you a few questions to sort of reflect on for yourself. What is your attitude toward your body, towards your image, toward your features, perhaps toward aging in general? Is it something you think about? Is it something that takes up headspace, if you will? Is it one of acceptance? Is it one of grace? Is it one of resistance, displeasure, of fight and defend, if you will? How do you define your looks? How do you define beauty, and where does that perception and definition come from for you? And how far would you go to meet this definition, this standard? How much would you spend? And what would achieving this level or this standard actually give you? And do you believe what the cosmetic companies say about their products that can help you in the way they say they can help you? What is your attitude and approach toward aging in general? Now, I'm just coming back from a vacation in Greece, and while I was away, I had the opportunity to be exposed to a lot more people than I do when I'm working from home and going to the gym and the grocery store and the things that I do on a daily basis. And just being out and about and sitting at cafes, I find myself people watching. That's something that I really enjoy. And in listening to the languages and the accents, I'm exposed to people from all over the world. And as a coach, I'm actually in the business of observing, basically how people play the game of life. And then in analyzing the outcomes they get, and then understanding their choice of playbooks, if you will. So their choice then often comes from something far beneath the future, or far beneath the surface, right? So when I work with someone, we're looking for where that choice comes from. What is beneath the surface? And while I didn't have the opportunity to engage in coaching conversations with the people I was observing on vacation, I did start noticing that groups of people that were seemingly traveling together were starting to look alike. And what do you think I mean by that? And if I were a different type of podcaster, I might have made memes about this. I might be making jokes about this, but I'm not, and therefore I won't. But what I found instead was something that raised alarm and also brought this to my attention and had me starting to reflect on my own and ponder a few questions that I wanted to bring before you. What I found were groups of young women traveling together who were looking alike because they had what I'm told is called RBF, if you know what that is, resting bitch face, due to Botox, with the duck lips, is what it's called, the injected lips, and the injected buttocks, right? So enhanced buttocks. So that was a younger groups of women traveling together, more than a few groups of young women. And then there were older women with the wide-eyed, surprised look of the stretched facelift who start looking alike. So there were these different groups of women. I started noticing this is obviously trending. I've noticed it with individuals. I've noticed it with actors and actresses, and I'm sure you have too. But seeing this in groups of people made me want to look a little bit deeper into what's really happening in society. And so that's what I've done. Um, and I had to ask myself, would I? Would I? And while I tend to say never to many things, I sat in reflection and I held the possibility accountable to my values. And I would ask that you do the same. And the answer when I did this became clear. And here are my answers. What would yours be? My answers were I would not inject my body with a foreign substance to enhance my appearance. Now, I have avoided the temptation of Botox. And yes, I have been tempted by it, but I know what it feels like to be paralyzed from the inside out because I've been bitten by a poisonous snake. So I know what it feels like for your muscles to be paralyzed, not be able to move them in my face, my head, and other parts of my body. And that was in my 40s. And you know what? I have just been maybe scared enough of it to not do it. So that's my answer for that. Now, a filler for my furrowed brow here, I don't like people thinking I'm mad at them. I remember thinking my mom was mad at me when I'd be waiting after swim team practice for her to pick me up because she looked, her brow was furrowed. Maybe a skeptical look, some would call it. But hers was from vision, right? And squinting to see. And that is what mine is from. And you know what? It is what it is. If I trusted a substance, that might be on my maybe list, but I do not trust a substance enough to inject it into my face. That's my answer. Now, although I went through a time in my life when I thought about how nice it would be to enhance my breast size, to give me a curvier body or what have you, I was not and am not a fan of going under the knife. I'm not a fan of elective surgeries. I kind of like the idea of saving the knife for saving a life. That's how I look at it. So, again, holding these questions accountable to my value system, and I would encourage you to do the same. Now, one thing that my eye doctor mentioned to me that might be in my future is called, and I may not pronounce this properly, a blepharoplasty or eyelid lift, as they call it, to correct drooping eyelids that can interfere with vision. Well, we will see. Pun fully intended on that one. But however, considering I can't even stand an eye exam with the machines getting so close to my eyes, I'm highly doubtful. All right. Now, all that to say, I accepted my body a long time ago. And I try to honor it with my choices because input equals output. So, meaning my choices, what I eat, what I drink, how I sleep, how I rest, how I de stress, those types of things. And I've accepted aging as a natural part of life, a natural change. in life. And I use gratitude to help me stay in that type of mindset. So, what about you? And what body part or parts for you represent beauty? Or perhaps sexuality or femininity or masculinity? What is it about you? What, if any, are you willing to alter to achieve the standard that you hold as a perception of beauty? So, if so, why or why not? And who or what influences that perception? Who do you think influences the generation younger than myself? Who do you think's been the greatest influencers in the last 20 years for beauty? Is there a name that comes to mind? Well, if you are thinking the Kardashians, you are right. So just the term, if you're familiar with their show, the Keeping Up with the Kardashians, just the title, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, has been that goal for so many young women specifically. The effort to keep up with the Kardashians. And really, a lot of psychoanalysts have said they cannot keep up themselves, that the unrealistic beauty standard has been too much for them, for themselves. So one of the struggles there has been that there hasn't been a lot of admission to whether they have used body enhancements or not. There's been admission to Botox and fillers, but not admission, or they've avoided discussing whether they've surgically modified their bodies. And so a lot of young women have gone to extreme lengths to try to match their bodies in surgical ways because they could not do it through exercise and diet and products that this family would represent. So crash dieting was something that some of the sisters promoted for a while, and they would promote diet products, and then they were accused of using Photoshop and filters to alter their images on social media, again creating this unrealistic, unattainable sense of beauty. So when we talk later about the toll on mental, physical, emotional well-being, there are these standards that are created by influencers and by the industry, the beauty and cosmetic industry, that have really taken a toll on people. So what about you? And is it something that was in effect or in play at one time in your life that has changed with wisdom, with maturity, with experience? Are there regrets for anything that you have done, or things that you've wanted to undo? There are some things that can be undone and some things that cannot. And when we talk about going to the lengths of something like altering your body, there are complications, right, and risks. And cosmetic surgery, like any surgery, carries risk. And some of them are just going to be just with the anesthesia itself, right? There can be reactions to it. There can be nausea, dizziness, even death. It was one of the Kardashians' husbands. I get all these people mixed up. I don't keep up with stars, but you know who I'm talking about. Whose mother died in cosmetic surgery. Infection, scarring, bleeding, blood clots, and more, tissue damage, organ damage. If I haven't scared you yet, if you're thinking about something that's for trying to meet a beauty standard image, perhaps there's some, maybe I can at least encourage you into doing more research into the risks before you go for it. There's also disfiguration that can happen even with just the injectables and the fillers. Okay. It's time for our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about more. We're going to talk about the beauty industry itself. And by the way, if you haven't seen the shows like Killer Curves and Botched, maybe those are the ones to watch to make sure that you are fully aware of what's at risk to alter your body for the sake of beauty. All right, don't go far. We'll be back with more Soul CPR.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. If you're live, I'm glad you're here. And if you're watching on demand, I am glad that you've joined when you can. So we're talking about the ugly side of beauty today, and there is an ugly side in more ways than one. And just to go back to the tremendous influence of the Kardashians, many young people report that is where they have been influenced, and social media is the great influence. I did want to go back and say that Kylie Jenner did eventually admit to having breast augmentation at the age of 19, and she now says, as a mom herself, that her biggest hope is that her own daughter will not change her body in such a way. So there's a lot of pulling back. So again, when we say that the psychologists who are analyzing this stuff say they're selling a fantasy and they themselves can't keep up, there's a lot of back changes now. They're saying there's a lot of changes. There's some backlash to Kim Kardashian now altering images, making her rear, which really got her famous for her mother even calling it junk in her trunk, now making it look smaller, appear smaller, because now the body change, the trend is to get smaller. So again, what do you do when things change? Seasons change, trends change. So anyway, it's even too much for they themselves to keep up with. So I think when people see an influencer do something, they then think it's safe because they're fine, they're back out there. But there's lots of documented stories of people struggles, deaths, disfigurements, such as that. So it's a very serious business, this business of perceived beauty. Well, the next question I asked myself after I asked myself, would I do some of these things, was what would I spend on products? to try to achieve a certain standard or to try to reach that fountain of youth that seems to be so greatly promised. And ouch, because I went looking through my bathroom cabinet, I seem to spend a lot. I definitely contribute to the GMP of the beauty product category. My bathroom cabinet's full. What about yours? What about yours? And what do they promise us? Well, I walked through the pharmacy the other day and I was reading some of the labels. Do you remember what some of them say? Do you pay attention? Do you get sucked in at a vulnerable moment? Are you online and that ad pops up and you go right down the rabbit hole and you click buy now, and then it's got a bonus offer with it and you go to the next one, you add $39.99 more. All right, well, you know what I'm talking about probably if you've ever been online late at night. So the promises, stuff like defying aging, anti-wrinkle, fine lines disappear, visibly younger looking skin in just 2 weeks. But do they work? That's the question. Well, when I was traveling home from vacation, I found a podcast on the availability on the airplane for the entertainment, and it's actually a Spotify podcast, and it's called Science Versus. And so they just put all these different things to the test of science. And one of the shows was putting these claims of skincare products to the test of science. And this one was Science versus Skincare is Anti-Aging a Scam. And they put them all to the test. And the bottom line, I'm just going to tell you, is no, they do not work. They do not work. I don't care if you're buying the $120 cream or the $20 cream. They do not work. And here's the basic level of science on why this multi-billion-dollar cosmetic industry boasted all these creams and serums and all with these special ingredients from all these different sources will work in these ways that they promise. However, according to science, to get into our skin, to actually rebuild what has been broken down due to aging and over time, has to first break through our first line of defense, which is our epidermis, our outer layer of skin. And that barrier is a barrier for a reason, to protect us, right? And getting past that barrier, they were explaining that our cells are built like a brick wall, and that the mortar of that brick wall are layers of, it's like fat. So products have to be fat soluble. So they said fat, not water soluble, and most everything out there is water soluble. And collagen, guess what? Is just too big. It's not fat soluble. So they did say there is some benefit to ingesting collagen. It's popular now to get collagen packs and mix them in with your beverage, your morning beverage, and ingest collagen. There's some minor benefit to that. Minor. But it's not going to rebuild your collagen. That is part of your life bounty, if you will. Okay. And hydrofluoric acid, another common ingredient that has all kinds of promises, is only a surface benefit. It's not going to go in and do so. It is what it is. So what you read on bottles, these promises of all these things, are just simply misleading. And how they get away with this are these, what they call spin control labs. So they take the promise of the ingredient and then they test it in a way that really is just a mind game. And they get a controlled group of people to feel like their skin looks better and they put words with it. So that's how they get away with it. There are literally spin control lab groups who design tests to actually validate the marketing claims. So it's backwards science, if you will. So, hey, what will you spend? What will you believe? What will you buy into to try to reach, to try to defy aging? Or will you accept aging as part of living? Will you find gratitude to be here another day? Will you take care of you? And let's talk about that for a minute. So one thing they did talk about was vitamin A retinol products. They're a huge market, right? The vitamin A, you may have heard, they're quite pricey in the prescription market. They're used for acne. I know my son was prescribed that, and it does work for acne. Okay, and that's what they talked about. But they said the prescription vitamin A is really the only thing that you can get some benefit from, long-term benefit, visible benefit. However, there are downsides to it, right? It might lighten your skin. It can also, though, create sunspots. It can also create sensitivity in your skin. It can irritate the skin. So prescription vitamin A is really the only thing that we can try to get, or retinol is the word, that we might get some benefit from, but there are risks with that benefit. Okay. Anything over the counter, they say, is a total waste of time and money. Now, I was at my dermatologist last week for my follow-up from my melanoma diagnosis. And in the lobby, while I'm waiting, are signs for procedures, for fillers, for Botox. So, knowing I was going to do the show this week, I had to ask. And so I talked to them, and I wanted to know, their take on this. And, their demographics, 18 to 45, men and women seeking all of this. But you know what I learned? The only thing we really need is sunscreen. And we need it every day, unless we truly want to go under the knife or have needles injected in some way. So again, going back to ask yourself those questions I posed at the beginning of the show to know what you really want in your life, why you want it, and what you expect to gain from it. We're going to talk more about that later. So talking about this multi-billion-dollar industry, do you know how many multi-billion-dollar industry, and then you go count how many dollars you spend in this industry? In the US alone, we spend $89.7 billion on beauty products annually. 89.7 billion annually, and worldwide, $688 billion industry. That blew me away. I'm sorry, but it really, really blew me away. And I don't know if you have a guess on the biggest producing by revenue company, but it is L'Oreal. I think we're all familiar with that one. Unilever's right behind it, Estee Lauder behind that, P&G, and on down the line. Now, beauty industry and social media. So we're talking about influencers. 60% of the beauty content on YouTube is controlled by influencers. 42% of beauty product buyers are aged 18 to 24 and are inspired to buy on social media. So that's what I'm talking about. So the messages, the images, the unattainable aspirations have an impact. 37% of shoppers find out about a new cosmetic brand through social media. Kylie Jenner's cosmetics brand has had a tidal wave of impact on Instagram, while her own personal account has over 300 million followers. She is considered responsible for the duck lip fad, trend, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. All right. Huda Beauty and Kylie Cosmetics have the largest social media engagement in the US. Huda Beauty has over 4 million subscribers on YouTube alone. L'Oreal's Instagram followers are over 10 million, making it the cosmetic brand with the largest Instagram following. And 33% of beauty shoppers like and follow a brand on social media. So lots of just industry, trending, worth, country by country. Of course, the US spends the most in the beauty industry, followed by China, Japan, Brazil, Germany, the UK, India, France, South Korea, and Russia. If those kind of statistics interest you, they certainly do me. So what would it take for you to accept yourself, the assets you were born with, to accept aging, to do the most with what you have? You know, I also wanted to mention the thing about science. Moisturizers actually work. Why? Because they create a barrier on your skin and they retain moisture. That's why they do feel good. So when you're thinking about what you're willing to spend on what feels good, but know that that's what it's doing. It's feeling good. It's temporarily locking in moisture. So if I go back to my grandmother, she used Pond's cold cream to clean her face and oil of Olay to moisturize. And I think they're probably still two of the least expensive available from the local pharmacy products that there are. So I think I'll do that. It's time for our second break. Don't go far, and we will be back with more Soul CPR and the ugly side of beauty.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Ann Papayotti, and this is Soul CPR, Healing Out Loud on Bold Brave TV. And today, I can't speak. Today, we're talking about the ugly side of beauty, the industry, the influencers, the unattainable standards. So at this point in the show, I really want to talk about the mental, physical, and emotional impact that this constant effort to try to reach these unattainable standards has on all of us, and especially on the most influential or influenced part of our population, our young people. You heard me say that the population, the 18 to 24-year-olds, are the 45% of those who are buying from social media. They're the ones going on and buying the cosmetics and tapping into those ads. I know I've done it. I think Thrive Cosmetics appeals to my age group with different things, and I've gone on and gone down the rabbit hole, and now I'm on their mailing list, and I'm like, stop, take it off. But it happens, and it can happen to all of us. And as I said, in those vulnerable moments, especially when we just want to feel better about ourselves or something, and looking better is one way we tend to do that. But the toll, the cost of these unattainable beauty standards can be significant, and it can be far-reaching. So let's talk about that for a moment. The mental well-being, self-esteem, and body image issues. When you have this constant exposure to idealized and often unrealistic beauty standards, as we were mentioning earlier, it can lead to this really poor body image and diminished self-worth, especially when people feel they cannot meet these standards. And really, they never feel they can. And one thing that psychologists are telling us now is that rather than even trying to come back to pushing people to attain body positivity, is to go for body neutrality. And what we mean by body neutrality is focus rather than on trying to see your body as positive, especially when you've been programmed for so long to focus on your flaws or your perceived flaws. Let me call them that, because you perceive them as flaws because they're not meeting the standard that you've decided or agreed to believe is imperfect because it doesn't match the trend. Okay. Neutrality means you focus on what your body can do, right? Rather than how it looks. So you exercise, no matter the size of your body. You exercise, you want your body to perform, you have peak performance, you want your body to do well, so therefore, going back to what I said at the beginning, input is output. So you take care of it, you care for what you have. Okay. And I do want to mention Dove. Dove has this beautiful campaign for self-esteem for women in particularly, and they show women of all different body sizes and shapes and colors, and using their products, and show them all but nude, so that people can say it's okay to look like this and look like this, and to be happy and to be proud. So I love that. Self-esteem, body image issues, though, when you're constantly exposed to the ideal, whomever has created the ideal, and that is where this influence is coming from beyond us. Anxiety and depression is very common when it comes to our mental health, with these unattainable standards and the pressure to conform to these beauty norms. It creates stress, anxiety. It can lead to depression when you can't reach a goal in life of any kind, but especially with the social media exacerbating it repeatedly. Comparisons are filtered and they're curated, and people report feelings of inadequacy. Eating disorders, Boys and girls struggle with this. When I lived in Montreal, I lived on a circle with 8 houses on this circle. 3 of the 8 homes had preteens or teens dealing with an eating disorder. It's very prevalent. And that's often tied to the pressure to maintain a particular weight or body shape to meet the promoted beauty standards or to be accepted by a certain group of people. For example, if you're a dancer, you have to look like a dancer. That's not true. But can you dance? That's the body neutrality. Is your body performing like a dancer? That's what matters if you want to be a dancer. Dance. Perfect the skill. Not try to make the body look like some perceived notion of what a dancer is supposed to look like. All right, when it gets to physical well-being, you heard me talk about the risks of some of the procedures, right? And any time you go under anesthesia, there's a risk, but there are harmful practices out there, and right behind closed doors, extreme dieting, extreme practices, use of food or lack of it, excessive exercise. Excessive exercise is also harmful. The dangerous cosmetic procedures, as we said, like unsafe plastic surgery or using harmful skin products even to try to achieve the standards. There's the long-term health effects of extreme weight loss. Heart rate can drop so low. Young people can have cardiac arrest. It's scary. Crash diets, overuse of beauty products can have lasting damage to the skin and the body. There can be malnutrition, weakened immune systems, hormonal imbalances can affect fertility, and there can even be life-threatening conditions. And of course, the cosmetic surgery risks like the infections, the scarring, anesthesia, as I said, complications, physical harm in pursuit of all these ideals. The emotional well-being is the constant dissatisfaction, because ultimately one is never, ever happy with one's appearance, which leads to a deeper, dark spiral in their emotions. So look, nothing is going to make me look 21 again, or 31, or 41, or even 51 again. We have to find a way to be happy, content, neutral about our faces and our bodies. And that work is from the inside out. Look, we all have a happiness baseline, okay? And think of it like it's just the speed we travel through life when it comes to happiness. That's our baseline. And situations can spike us up happier for a period of time or dip us down for a period of time. And neuropsych researchers have proven this through research with lottery winners who obviously will spike up for a period of time in their happiness before returning to that baseline that they walk through life. They also did research on survivors of tragic accidents resulting in paraplegia. Now, obviously, their happiness baseline dipped low for a period of time, but they also returned to their unique baseline. It's no different than with these investments and in alterations of people's image and body, right? There's a spike up in self-esteem and feeling good about oneself and confidence. temporarily. And then there's a return to that person's unique happiness baseline before they once again at that baseline where they were already dissatisfied, already unhappy with their looks, their inability to attain a certain standard. So what do they have to do? They have to do the next surgery or the next thing, the next thing, still trying to reach that goal. Or they go into depression, they deal with anxiety, all these things that we're talking about. They live their life in a place of feeling unworthy and inadequate. So the work is from the inside out. Research also proves that we can increase our baseline. It's kind of like endurance training. If this is your baseline, let's say this is, the pace on the treadmill that you can do, and you can increase the level of the treadmill, and it's, it's going to make you're going to work harder, but you can, okay, I can go a little bit longer. And then eventually this can become my walking pace. But I had to work at it. I had to build endurance to have the incline here. We can increase our happiness baseline by doing the inside out work. So if you really want to feel beautiful, then positive psyche is the key. We turn it up by breaking and reprogramming negative thought patterns. That is the work in front of you. And that is where you really need to invest with the goal of smooth and silky sense of self. And you do that with the ingredient of self-love. It's time for our final break. So don't go far. We'll come back. My closing thoughts. See you soon.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zorich, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorich, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorich has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Hello, everyone. And as we are coming to a close here on the show, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about body neutrality. It's really that middle ground for people who find body positivity a little too much to go for, right? But if you've been in a place of body hatred, if you can come to a place of body neutrality, it really means that you don't let your self-esteem ride on your appearance. And there are some specific things that you can do to try to reach a mindset of body neutrality. And so let me share a few things with you that you can do. Write down 5 things your body can do. Start with that. What are 5 things your body can do? And find gratitude for those 5 things. And use some body neutral phrases to counteract negative self-talk. So maybe even write down, what are the phrases you hear yourself what do you put yourself down about? What are the negative phrases? And then write a positive phrase to replace each one of those, because you really do have to change the self-talk. Okay? Start wearing clothes that you feel good in. Don't wait for that idealized size if that's what you've been trying to attain and you haven't reached it and you've gotten frustrated or whatever. Buy clothes that you feel good in and wear them. Wear clothes that feel good on your body. Another tip would be to eat intuitively. Do you know what intuitive eating is? When you eat intuitively, you're going to also eat mindfully. I'm going to combine these two. One is when you're mindfully eating, you pay attention to your food. You're not just stuffing your face while you're doing something else, multitask. You really focus on the food while you eat it. You pay attention to the color, the texture, the way it feels in your mouth, notice everything. So you treat food as the gift of life, if you will. It's nutrients for your body, right? Appreciating your body. We're trying to move into that. Being mindful of the smells, the colors, the tastes, the textures, right? That's mindful eating. Intuitive is you stop when you're full. You know when enough's enough, right? So again, if you're mindful and you're focused on eating, it's not something you're doing on the run and you're savoring every bite. This is for my health. This is for my nutrition. This so that my body can do those things I listed that my body can do. So this is a way to start practicing neutrality. And sometimes it's just a first step. Another thing is redefine aging for yourself and changes. We talked about fall in the beginning. It represents change. How can you take this time and let change be something positive and represent positive? And what do you want to embrace as change in your life rather than these unattainable changes? What's a change you can make that's positive for you right now? That's really beautiful in a way that is more encompassing, right? So one thing that I can suggest for me, like I think of wrinkles on my face as like a map of my life. Like I know the last kid that came into my family, I didn't birth him, but I took him in, and he knows he gave me a few extra wrinkles. But I also call my wrinkles wisdom. And when I think of them that way, I don't want to give not one of them up. So how do you think about your wrinkles? All right. Well, talked about self-love. Self-love may be too far reaching for you right now, but let's go neutral. We can move towards positivity and towards love, but certainly away from hate. And why is self-love so important in the work of that? Because it is the foundation for how we show up in the world. So we want to definitely start moving towards that. And as I said, we are in a relationship with everyone and everything. I've said in previous shows, of course, with our time, our food, our money, with others, and certainly with ourselves. And it impacts how we think, we feel, and we behave with everyone and everything. It's going to pay off in your relationships at work and home when you can begin to love yourself. So give yourself permission to take up space and time to have a voice in your own journey and awaken to this beautiful thing called owning yourself and your journey. So, better decision making, confidence, peace, balance, all these things come with self love. Now, I do have a retreat coming up that's all about self love in February, and it's on my website if anybody wants more information. Thank you, Dan. There it is. If you go to my website, skyviewcoaching.com, the week of Valentine's Day in February, we'll be going to San Salvador and El Salvador. It's just for only 8 people. A few spots are already claimed. But if you're interested, please go to my website or reach out to me for more information. I'm excited for those who will be joining me on that. And while you're on my site, sign up for my newsletter. You can stay up to date about the retreat and courses and other offerings that I'll have to support you in your journey. So as today's show comes to a close, just remember that healing is not a linear journey. It's a process of profound transformation. And giving yourself that space and time, as I said, is part of it. If today's stories or the topic resonated with you, then please share this podcast with someone else who may need a lifeline on their own. And as always, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us reach more hearts. You can connect with me on social media. It's at Skyview Coaching on Facebook and at Ann Papayotti on Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. Let me know your stories, your thoughts, and anything you'd like me to cover in future episodes, because this show is for you. So until next time, may you find strength in your vulnerability and courage in your journey. I thank you for listening. So until then, breathe deeply, love openly, successfully. Good day.
This has been Soul CPR with host Ann Papayotti. Breathe life back into your spirit with each episode, where she and special guests explore the relationships that hurt us and discover that healing can only begin with you. Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.